have to apologize to some of you that were watching the video from last night. I need to stop filming so late and editing into the wee hours. I wake up this morning, I'm like, I might as well watch the video. It's live now. And I put it like on a scheduled timer so it has enough time to upload. As soon as I start watching it, I'm like, man, I forgot to even put a section of video in there. I forgot to show you guys the mummy pictures. I'm like, here, I'm gonna show you pictures of the mummy first. And then I don't do that. I just cut right to the mask. So, sorry. Yeah, I was supposed to tell you more about the schizoid. And I tell you, it ain't like I'm some old guy that I can't stay up past 9 o'clock. I was busting my ass out. I live in the woods. I was splitting and stacking wood for probably 8 hours straight yesterday. By the time I started filming this at 10 o'clock at night, I was ready to drop. I'm like, and then before you know it, it's 2:30, 3 in the morning, where I'm like, publish the video now, and then I just want to smash my head on the pillow and I'm done. So now it's 7 o'clock in the evening. I should be able to get something done tonight and not screw it up. So, holy smokes, 25 days in. Halloween is coming up quick. Tonight I'm going to kick off with a really, really, really cool Dracula. It's a Bela Lugosi Dracula. So this is a really neat one. It is something most of you have never seen. I guarantee that. Unless you hung out back in the day at a really cool place called the Magic Castle. I'll tell you what the Magic Castle is in a minute, but this Dracula is it's so unique, and there's a handful of copies produced. I think 13 were made. First, I'm going to tell you about the origins of this Dracula head, and then I'm going to tell you about the project where it was resurrected after decades of nobody even knowing about this thing. And I'm going to show you copies that were painted and haired, and then I'm going to show you mine at the end of showing. Then I'm going to show you mine last, okay? Because mine I did. All the other ones are great, like they're amazing, but mine is special because I made it look. You'll see. Title to this Dracula head. It's called the Magic Castle Dracula. And I'm going to tell you exactly what it is and where it came from. So this is really cool, okay? First of all, we're going back to the 1960s for this piece. There was a private magician's club. I believe it still exists today because I spoke with a magician from this place. This private magician's club would go to a place in Hollywood called the Magic Castle. How cool is that? I want to go there, all right? I know it still exists, and anyway, that's a whole nother story. So anyway, in this cool club, and there was like very, very popular people there, like Boris Karloff. People like that would frequent the Magic Castle. It's pretty magical, if you ask me. In this Magic Castle, there was a mannequin, a dummy of a Dracula figure, okay? And it was basically on display at this magician's club. Just a cool Dracula figure, right? And who made the head for that Dracula? Don Post Studios. This is an unreleased Dracula head. It was just made for that Magic Castle figure, okay? Never cataloged, never available for sale. This Magic Castle Dracula figure was very well known to people that obviously frequented the castle. The OG collectors in the Don Post world all knew of the Magic Castle, especially the guys out in California who would get to go there and hang out. But they would talk about this Dracula figure that was there. Don Post Studios made the head, Looks like Bela Lugosi. And for years, this, like, either the foam, I think it was the Foam Master, existed in someone's closet, in a collector's closet, like just in a box. So back around 2017, one of the great collectors of our time, my good friend Mascahuna, was in charge of this project and producing 13 copies of this lost Magic Castle Dracula. So first I'm going to show you the dummy. Not me. I'm going to show you the Magic Castle dummy. Then I'm going to show you what it looked like as a blank after the process of making a new mold went down there, and there was blank copies, 13 total. Then 13 lucky collectors were able to buy one blank. So it wasn't like anybody could buy this. This was going deep into the dime post collecting world, and 13 special collectors were chosen to own one of these incredible Magic Castle Dracula heads. And I was one of those 13. First I'm going to show you some of the paint-ups that were done, and they're all cool. The thing that's cool is they're all different. One guy did his this way, another guy did his that way. So here we'll take a quick look at some of the finished pieces out there, and you'll get a good idea of what people were doing with these. And keep in mind what the original looked like, that original dummy. And then I'm going to show you what I did with mine. First, let's check out what other people did with theirs. And now I'm going to show you my copy of the Magic Castle Dracula. So, me being the crazy dime post freak I am, I wanted mine to really look like the original Magic Castle dummy. The piece originated from an actual life cast of Bela Lugosi, straight from his face, with the exception of the back of the head and the eyes. The rest of this is Bela 100%. I mean, as an absolute life cast was used. So they made this head out of it for that Magic Castle Dracula back in the early 60s. And that life cast was made during the filming of Return of the Vampire, during the Count's liquidation at the end of that film. If you guys have seen that and know what I'm talking about, they did a life cast to make prosthetics for that end scene. And that is where this head, or the mold, originated from, was that life cast. That life cast that was made during that film. And check this out. Here's a really great photo of Marcel Delgado sculpting the Delgado gorilla. And look back up there on that shelf in the background. What do you see sitting up there? Yep, that's it. This lost Lugosi casting. That's the actual Foam Master, I believe, sitting up on that shelf. That's a great old picture. So, I acquired some rare photos of this guy, this dummy. Someone sent me some rare color photos that were taken of the actual dummy. So I had great reference pictures of this dude. And I sent it out to the Tharps, of course. And boy, check that thing out. So this is the only one that was done to look like the actual Magic Castle dummy. And I love what the other guys have done with their copies, but I just had to recreate that actual Magic Castle figure. And boy, Rob and Kathy did a number on this dude. And it's funny because in some pictures you'll see his hair is all insane, like he was thrown around in closets. Here, let's get him looking crazy. Like he was probably tossed around in broom closets, you know, for years later. So he's kind of looking like that and like that. Okay. But of course, good old Bella will fix your hair. But this is one amazing piece to own. As a Don Post collector, this is amazing to have this. You know, a never cataloged piece. One head was made back in the 60s for that dummy. And for years, like, the Foam Master existed, but nothing was ever done with it. It's so cool that a friend of mine brought this back from the grave. Truly a really, really, really neat piece of Don Post history. So, luckily I had nice color photos of that original dummy, and of course the Tharps nailed it. One cool thing I have to show you is this old postcard. Check that out. This is a real postcard, and you can see who is sitting right on the front of this thing. Is that cool or what? So, the resemblance is uncanny. So, flip this over, and it says, if you can read that, the Magic Castle, Hollywood, California. This famed private club for magicians entertains members and their guests with magic performed by many of the guest magicians in the world. Count Dracula watches over the nightly proceedings in the castle's haunted wine cellar. Oh, is that cool? You can imagine what crazy stuff went on down there, huh? Pretty sweet, huh? So, had to show you that really cool postcard, and that proves even more that there was a Magic Castle Dracula dummy hanging out there at that really cool place. All right, we started with one really cool vampire, and we're going to continue with two more really great ones here, both from the 1970s. On the left, you have the Count. On the right, Old Vampire. That's the first version of the Count. They did a later, there was a later version in the 80s, but this is the 1979 first version of the Count. This is after Don Post lost the rights for Bela Lugosi. So they had to title it the Count. Of course it looks like him, but they sort of got around the whole issue of the rights by just calling it the Count and not, you know, Dracula or Bela Lugosi Dracula. As you can see here, a Don Post mask, Don Post Studios, 1979. And the 80s version is cool, but it doesn't seem to look as good as the late 70s version. They're really close, but of course the older one looks better. Some of you may recognize what this old 70s vampire is from. Have you guessed it yet? I'm sure you have. Barnabas Collins from Dark Shadows. This is a really, really popular this is a really collectible mask amongst Don Post collectors. The old vampire is a great, great mask. This one still has his little, you know, strands of hair stuck to the sides of his head. But I just had to show you these two since we started off with a really important vampire mask that was indeed produced by Don Post Studios. That is awesome. Really, really neat. You know, they feel old too. They feel nice and aged. You know, 70s latex rubber. You don't see too many of these guys pop up, or the old versions of this old vampire. There's newer ones out there, newer released in later years, but a couple of really cool masks. All right, moving along. Next up, let's take a look at 3 great versions of another very famous Universal monster known as the Phantom of the Opera. These were all produced by Don Post Studios, and starting on the left, this one was just titled Eric in the 1977 catalog. This version is quite rare, especially in this condition. This one popped up as a pretty much brand new, unworn copy. I mean, look at the coloring on the paint details. It looks like it was made yesterday. This is a phenomenal copy of a very rare mask, and he made his debut. Eric made his debut in that 1977 catalog. Look at that. Look at the quality of this mask. You can see every vein that was painted. All the colors are there, nice and bright. Not many Erics out there, and especially looking like this one. So that's the 1977. Moving along, this is the rare 1982 Phantom Mask by Don Post Studios. Again, not many of these around at all. Very rare. This mask makes a brief appearance in the 1982 film Halloween 3. When Chalice is snooping around the factory, he goes by the Wall of Fame, as we call it, with all those masks lined up at the mask factory that were not pumpkins and witches. You'll see 1982 Don Post masks in the background, and this was one of them. That rare 1982 Phantom. And this was a brand new tagged copy that I acquired with its original 82 care sheet attached to it. When my friend foam filled it, he had to take the tag off, but I still have the little thingy there, and I'm going to attach it somehow. I keep it with the mask for now, but that truly is an incredible find, having one brand new like that, never worn. That's amazing. They do not look like that when they ever surface. That is unbelievable. Then moving right along, finally, the 1983 Highbrow Phantom. It's called the Highbrow in the hobby. And that's the 83 Phantom now. And that, if you remember, looks a lot like that dude that I just showed you the other night. It's going back to that old style, that old shaped head, and definitely looks to be out of that 70s mold. Back to that old style shape of the Phantom's head. See that? The 82 Phantom was much smaller, as you can see there. 2 completely different masks. And really quick, I thought I would just pull out that 70s Phantom for comparison next to the 83 here, the Highbrow. And you will see definite similarities in that mask for sure. And keep in mind, this one's elevated more off of the bottom here, the way it's on a pedestal and whatnot, but they definitely look like they are the same size and have the same teeth and everything. So they definitely pulled out that old mold to start producing those 83 Phantoms back then. Really cool. All right, so this guy here, This is kind of an important piece. This is the 60s calendar Phantom. Okay, it's not produced in the 60s. This is a modern pull from the master. Okay, there was a master mold made, I'm assuming, for the 1998 reissue line, and a master mold created from a foam master. And even though it was made for the 1998 line, this mask, some of the monsters for that 98 reissue calendar line by Don Post, the molds were not altered in any way. So this here Phantom is the way it would look in 1966, as far as the features and the sculpt and the mold and everything. That is the 60s Phantom. And it's going to be quite different from any of the Phantoms I've showed you in the past, couple of days. I talked to my old Uncle Evil yesterday, and he told me when the reissue line was being made, the Mummy Bee, the Karloff Frankenstein, the Mole Man, the Mole People, the Wolfman Bee, and the Phantom were unchanged from the original molds. Meaning, when those 1998 reissue masks came out, you're truly getting a copy of that 60s mask in your hands. As far as the features and the actual mold itself, nothing was changed. The other monsters that I just did not mention in that little list were altered in one way or another. Probably slight changes or new sculpts had to be made and whatnot. But so that right there is what a 60s Phantom would look like during the calendar era of 1966 up until the late 60s. So that is really neat. This one was painted and haired by Kelly Mann, the mask doctor. He made a little thing to stick it on. It looks kind of like his shoulders, but just cool to have. I used to have other copies out of that mold in this collection, but this is the only one I've got right now from that 60s calendar era mold. And that is really cool. This is a master copy, like I was saying. The detail is insane. Like, the more you get into production molds and recasts and all that, you lose all of this detail. You don't see this on later generations of castings. If you heard me say, like, I didn't know what generation something was in all these videos I've been telling you, that means how many generations of a mask was molded. Like, if you took this and molded it, you have another one, but it's going to be a little smaller and a little less detailed. That'll be a second generation. Get it? Do it again, it's a third generation, and so on. So when I'm talking about the generations, that's what I'm referring to. This is really cool, though. That is totally that 60s Phantom. And that is a master copy. And I almost sold this thing. And then at the time, I didn't realize it was a master pull. And it's definitely here to stay, that's for sure. I'm not getting rid of this mask. So I hope you like those masks, those Universal monsters. Dracula and the Phantom of the Opera. Who doesn't love them? Those are great copies. They're really neat vintage pieces, and the custom Magic Castle Dracula is one of my favorite things I've acquired. I'm going to close the video out with something different, something more alien. The 905 Alien by Don Post Studios. I don't just have one, but I've got two of them. And that one there has its very rare set of factory hands. The 905 Alien made its debut in the 1977 Don Post catalog. And just a really strange, made up alien character. Definitely, the mask is definitely on the smaller side, but it is absolutely a very iconic Don Post mask from that late 70s era. Definitely a favorite by many Don Post collectors out there. And this set of hands is incredible. Absolutely pristine and brand new. Very rare to find a set of these hands. Extremely rare to find a set that is like new. So I acquired these from a friend's collection years ago, and had them foam filled right away because they were absolutely perfect. And I don't think you'll ever see any that look quite like this. They've got all of the blue veins. That's the factory. They have not been repainted at all. These are exactly the way they came from Don Post Studios, and that is definitely a very rare sight there. Seeing the mask with a pristine set of alien hands is really, really something. I love this set so much. I wanted to find those hands for years. They're just so crazy looking, and I've always loved the catalog photo where somebody's wearing the head and the hands, and they're just standing there, you know, with this. They're made to look like they're in outer space on some spaceship, but you can tell it's just a dude standing there dressed up for Halloween. I'm going to put the other copy here next to this one. There you go. As you can see, the colors differ a little bit. One of these tentacles is up in the air. It's stuck that way. It's not going to turn. One of these masks can actually be seen in Don Coscarelli's first film, Kenny and Company. Okay, and over the years I became friends with Don, and he came to me one day asking my assistance for help with the original screen used mask, which was so cool of him to think of me on this. But he his mask, the one from the film that was used on camera, Don's mask, that is the screen used mask from Kenny and Company, was missing its tentacles. Okay, these crazy talon-like tentacles that stick out. So I reached out to someone that I knew that had a mold for the fangs off of the Sargoth Cobra, which are very similar to those 905 alien antenna or tentacles, whatever you want to call them. So I was able to hook Don up with a set of those because I don't think anyone has a mold for these original alien, you know, thingies here. So it worked well. Don put him on his mask, and he was so happy. He did send me pictures of that original screen used mask with the new tentacles, and I'll have to see if I could find that. But totally a really, really cool 70s Don Post mask. And a little on the smaller side. They all are. And they all have that stamp on the back. Don Post Studios 1977. So that is a good way. So that's a cool way to close out this video. Number 25 out of the 31 days of Halloween masks here on my channel. Coming to you from the Crimson Ghost Mask Room. And be ready for number 26. And we're getting so close to Halloween. I'm excited, but I'm going to be sad when it's all over. All right, maybe I can go up there and edit all of this footage before I pass out. So thanks for watching, and I will see you guys tomorrow.